back, y'all. Look, um, it's very crucial. We already kind of know what's going on with the ACC. They are on a brink of instability. A lot of decisions need to be made with the conference. They need to know exactly, far as members that are in the conference need to know exactly which way to go moving forward. Now, as we already know, as for the Big 12, when Texas was receiving favors because they were the bigger brand and they had the Longhorn Network and they were getting money from that network, it didn't sit well within the conference for many years, to the point to where people didn't want members didn't want Texas in the conference anymore. They couldn't wait for them to leave. That's a different scenario than what we're dealing with Florida State and Clemson. It's more of like similar, though, in a way of them going to be favored and getting more revenue than the other members. So what does this mean? There's a lot of implications. Okay, we have revenue sharing coming up. Okay, that's the first thing. So we know that funds are going to be scarce just based off of that alone. So the members like Wake Forest, Syracuse, Pitt, all those other schools are going to see a significant financial hit because of that. And when we talk about that change alone, it puts a strain on the conference overall. Then you look at that not only is the funds that was at first being evenly distributed per each member, now it's those schools are going to take another hit. If you're not Florida State or Clemson or potentially Miami or North Carolina, or even just let's just keep it on Florida State and Clemson. If you're not those two schools, your school is going to take another financial hit on top of the revenue sharing. So this is going to pretty much put all those members who are not performing, far as monetarily wise, are going to be strained, and it's going to kind of like force their hand. There's going to be infighting, of course, even though they all voted to make this change to keep Florida State, but you are asking for also inadvertently to inherit these other changes. So that's what's ahead in the next couple of years to come, until ultimately Florida State and Clemson leave the conference. So that is the first things that the ACC is going to experience with those changes. The next thing that's going to happen is when Florida State, now you have to look at it like this, when Clemson and Florida State build their additional revenue up on top of what they've already getting paid, so their baseline is not going to change. Florida State and Clemson baseline of what, 26 million or 30 million, however much that everyone was making beforehand, their baseline is going to stay 30, and then they're going to be getting an additional 10 to 15 million each year based off of TV revenue or TV ratings. It's going to be unevenly distributed, so they're going to gain an extra 10 to 15 million each year on that. So they're going to be collecting they're going to collect funds to actually put towards their exit fee. So basically, the bottom half of the ACC is going to be funding Florida State and Clemson exit out of the conference, literally. However many years that they stay and collect more revenue, that's going to be used so to ultimately go towards their exit fee. So it's kind of like it's a win-win situation for Florida State and Clemson, because they're going to be generating extra revenue to help, and they're going to use that surplus of money to go with whatever other money that they raise to leave the conference. And then they're going to go to there's only three other conferences to go to, and I know a lot of people don't like to mention the Big 12 when people discuss Florida State leaving the ACC, because they feel that financially it would be equivalent. But I believe we'll leave that up to the Big 12 commissioner to say otherwise, that for those in the naysayers think that the Big 12 is going to be getting the same amount as the ACC. I like to beg to differ that, but we'll leave that up for another video. So the Big 10 and the SEC is the only conferences that we mentioned with those two schools. Now, I can tell you with those changes alone, it's going to have an effect on the ACC, making it more unstable and more members wanting to leave while they can, because you got to understand that they're going to be getting less revenue. So those schools are going to get less than the Big 12. The rest of those schools, they're going to do, as we talked about, revenue sharing and then taking a pay decrease in their baseline. So for an example, if everyone was getting 30 million across the board, right? We have now Florida State getting a majority of those funds. What does that mean? Well, you got to get it from somewhere, right? No longer does the Wake Forests, the Syracuse, and the other schools get that 30 million. There's going to be about 4 million taken from Syracuse, another 4 from Wake Forest, and you kind of get the idea with the rest of the schools. So their baseline is going to now drop. If it was 30 million, it's going to drop to about 26 million. If it was 26, it's going to drop to about 22. So that's what I'm talking about, in addition to the revenue sharing. So this is going to pose a big problem with members wanting to leave to greener pastures. And yes, the Big 12 provided greener pasture because, once again, they're looking at increasing their revenue in all aspects. And that's the main focus of the Big 12 commissioner. So you will see inadvertently that schools that are in the ACC are going to be joining various conferences, because they know that they're going to be in a situation where they're going to be forced to make the decision, either do we stay and we won't be able to compete at the highest levels, or do we go to another conference? So that is pretty much what is headed. That is the next phase of this next round of realignment for the ACC. Now, what does that mean for the schools or for the ACC moving forward? Well, they're going to have to make adjustments, because if they know a number of schools that's going to be leaving, at least 7 to 8 schools, it may be a little bit more, okay? But we could say at least 8 schools, okay? It may not start off with 8. It may go in increments and phases, but the ACC now needs to think about their future and what are they going to do? Well, as they look around, okay, they're going to be looking towards the top schools that are currently out there on the market right now. And that's going to be what? Your Tulanes, your Memphises, your South Floridas, maybe even a Texas State. However many schools that they're going to need to, people like to use the term backfill, but I like to just say the next best programs that are available. So this is what you're going to see the ACC doing. And then inadvertently, will that cause them to lose their autonomy status as a power? And will they be grouped in with the rest of the schools, like the best of the rest, or the group of 5 or group of 6? Because we know that that was the same thing that happened to the Pac-12. Their best schools were moved to other conferences. So same thing with the ACC. Their best schools are also going to be moving to another conference. So this is something to look for moving forward with the ACC. Now, I made a video. If you want to watch it, it is what's next for the ACC, the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10. Okay, you can watch that, and I discussed briefly what schools the Big 12 should add. And so once again, just a quick brief update. Okay, I believe that when the time is right and the opportunity is given, that the Big 12 should add Louisville, Duke. If Miami's available, add them. Georgia Tech, if they're available. You also have Virginia, and I'm not talking about Virginia Tech, but those two is almost like an Arizona State, I believe, hand in hand. If you can get those two, That's a must. Get the Virginia market. Uh, I would not add Pitt. I would not add Syracuse. I would not add Wake Forest. And a lot of people talk about SMU. There's no shade to SMU, but I just believe that SMU uh, doesn't have what it take, at least right now, to win a national title. So that's the goal in mind when adding schools from the ACC. Do they have the potential of winning a national title? And if so, how long will it take for them? Or if not, how long will it take for a school to get build what they need to be able to compete for a national title? Because that is the argument of the SEC and the Big Ten. Those programs, or the programs on at the top, okay, they're distributing revenue at the highest levels, and they're doing all of these things to try to keep their teams prepared to compete for a national title. And I believe likewise the Big 12 should also, all of the members of the Big 12 should keep that in mind. We're no longer reaching for just winning a conference title. Like, that means nothing in this new landscape of college football. It's about national titles. If that's not on your program's mind, your coach's mind, the player's mind to motivate them, then that's clearly at a disadvantage with with these programs. So I believe that that's what the mindset should be moving forward for these schools. And so, with that being said, this is what the ACC is up against with moving forward in the next couple of years or so. Before 2030, soon as these programs raise the money to leave and they have a landing spot, or we're not going to call it a landing spot, they have an invitation to one of those Power 3 conferences, or the Big 12, SEC, any members in the ACC. Once they get that invitation and they have the funds, they're leaving, because they already know that the grass is green on the other side, and they're going to be looking to not face a baseline decrease in their revenue that is inevitable to happen with this new agreement or settlement that Florida State and Clemson just signed and the ACC approved of. Once again, thank y'all for watching another video of how to with Master Vizay. Until next time, have a great day.